Yo, yo, yo. Hello to our usual listeners.
Hello.
It has been a while. It has been a while. All of 3 days that we
Wow.
haven't recorded anything. But we have been tweaking our
Approach.
format and our approach to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to break an episode into two halves. And today we're going to discuss conspiracy theories. Now, Tom
Hello.
and Dimitri are back on the mics, but
Yeah.
Tom is a massive lover of conspiracy theories. He loves them. Don't you,
I
Tom?
I do love them only because I think people who um, believe in conspiracy theories without actually looking into the facts are stupid.
Oh, that was nice. That was nice. Okay, yeah. I mean, look, I think facts are murky anyway. I think with any conspiracy theory, just to give it a bit of background, with any conspiracy theory, the reason, oh, all right, the reason why they exist is because there are holes in the stories which make conspiracy theories plausible.
Okay.
Do you see
Would
what
you
I
like
mean?
to
So,
would you like to expand on that?
well, I think, look, if we take the top three that we're going to talk about, which is the 9/11 conspiracy theory that it was an inside job, the flat Earth theory, which is a popular one at the moment, and that the moon landing is not real. In each and every one of them, there is something about the story that doesn't quite stack up,
Okay.
which
So
makes it all plausible.
let's just jump right in here. You tell me
Okay.
where flat Earth theory what doesn't stand up? What doesn't stand up to the cold, harsh light of a good fact?
Okay, yeah, you're right. That one is a bit crazy.
That one is fucking ridiculous.
But let's kick it off. Let's kick it off with that one. Let's kick it off with that one. Okay,
Go.
so for those of you who can you stop moving your wire, mate?
Oh, sorry, mate.
Anyway, for those of you who don't know, the flat Earth theory is massive at the moment, right? It's in the news. It's everywhere. There's a flat Earth society, which has something like over 200 people,
They're popular,
mostly Americans and Britons. So
so
you know.
mostly
Um,
Americans.
well, actually,
We love you, America, but come
we
on,
do. But I think
it's called
actually
school.
it's well, okay. Anyway, but it's got a lot of backers as well. So B.O.B., the famous
Yeah,
rapper. Anyone
yeah.
remember him? Anyone remember
And
B.O.B.?
he got into a rap feud with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Yeah, that was hilarious. That
Yeah,
was hilarious. But the whole point of it is that the Earth is flat, and
yeah,
actually all the images that we see of space, where the Earth is a sphere, are all faked.
yeah.
That's what they say. So we've been the conspiracy here is that we've been fed lies all our life, and these 200 people plus their supporters know exactly that actually, and they can prove to us that not only is that the Earth is flat, but also forces like gravity don't exist.
I mean, one of the experiments that they did was some guy took a spirit level on an aeroplane, and because the bubble didn't move, that disproved any curvature of the Earth. I mean,
Sure. I mean, look, okay. First of all, what I have to say is this: some of these people are possibly looking for conspiracies. There are some people, like there's a famous one, is Eddie Bravo. He thinks pretty much everything is a conspiracy. Another famous guy is Alex Jones, the guy that gets naked and shouts at the camera and promotes his male vitamin systems.
right.
Now, I'm not saying that they're completely wrong. I'm not saying that they're ludicrous as people, because I think most of these guys are doing it to entertain rather than to act, rather than because they 100% believe this. I think what they're doing is they're leaving the door slightly ajar to make sure that they can cover both sides. It's a bit like saying that you don't belong to Christianity, but you believe in God,
Sure.
right? I mean, isn't religion a massive conspiracy? I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, okay. So
Anyway,
go on.
but the flat Earth.
Yeah.
Oh, I can hear you. What did you do?
I have no idea.
Sounds like anyway. Anyway, the flat Earth theory is that the Earth is flat. We've been lied to all our lives, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So, Tom, take it away as an astrophysicist. Oh wait, sorry, you're a fish.
A studier of fish and
Fish
all things
enthusiast.
marine, biological,
Just fish.
or chemistry. Well, yeah, just fish. Sure. Well, I mean, where do I begin? The ancient Greeks, they figured out that the Earth.
Don't go that far. Don't go that far.
Well, I'm going to go that far because, I think it's important. Mostly I want to emphasize ancient. I'd like to emphasize ancient in this little thing. So the ancient Greeks, and they were ancient, this is thousands of years ago, they wondered why, when a ship sails off into the distance, they wondered why they couldn't see them anymore, even with, binoculars or a telescope, as primitive as they were. They wondered why they couldn't see them. So
many telescopes in ancient Greece, was it?
Probably, a little, possibly. It only takes 2 lenses. I'm pretty sure someone figured it out back then.
I'm not sure they did.
I think it was actually Copernicus, wasn't it, who figured that out?
I thought it was Galileo. Either way.
Anyway, so, all right, there may or may not have been, but, sharp-eyed individuals, at the very least. And they wondered why they couldn't see the ships when they sailed a certain distance. And it was always a certain distance they got to before the ships disappeared from sight. So, they did a test, and they at night they got the ships to have lanterns on them, like quite big lanterns that you could see, and then in a sort of a line, like a transect, they sent all these different ships off at slightly different times, and they timed how long it took each one to disappear over the horizon, and it was exactly the same for each ship. So they devised that it must be curved. So, I mean, they figured it out. Do you know what I mean? They figured it out. Some guy even figured out, and this is thousands of years ago, some guy even quite accurately figured out the curvature of the Earth by finding out when shadows were falling at certain times over certain geographical locations, like different cities. He was able to figure out that if a shadow was falling at X time on, at X hour, but at that exact same time somewhere else, on a different geographical location, so obviously, either east or west of them, the sun was in a different, the shadow was falling at a different time. He figured out that, there's different time zones, and that the Earth, it can't be flat, can it? Because how could it be?
Okay, so just to brief the guys that don't know, what the flat earthers actually believe, and this is from a Live Science website. So the leading flat earth theory holds that the Earth is a disk with the Arctic Circle in the center, and Antarctica, which is a 150-foot tall wall of ice around the rim. So if you imagine a disk with a white massive tower on the perimeter of the disk, that's your Earth. So they say that the NASA employees guard this ice wall to prevent people from climbing over and falling off the disk. Whoa, why are you laughing? Earth's day and night cycle is explained by positioning that the sun and moon are spheres. So they believe that they are spheres.
They believe that everything else is a sphere. All the other planets are spheres, but not Earth.
But they say that the position of the sun and the moon measure. So they measure 32 miles and move across in circles above the planet of the Earth, above the Earth. So So, like spotlights, these spheres illuminate different portions of the planet in 24-hour cycle.
Sure. Those spheres, yeah, that they believe exists.
Yes. So
Cool.
then also they believe that Earth's gravity is an illusion. Objects
Okay.
do not accelerate downwards. Instead,
Accelerate downwards.
yeah. So
Sure.
if you've
All right.
got gravity, you drop a ball, it accelerates downwards, doesn't it?
Partly, also the Earth on its rotation and journey through the universe rushes up to meet it. So,
Right. So what they're saying is that the disk of Earth accelerates upwards at 32 feet per second squared,
how do they figure that out?
driven up by a mysterious force called dark energy. So
Okay.
instead of things falling down, it's actually Earth catching up with them.
Right.
What they
Well,
don't.
that part's a little bit true. I mean, well,
Is
it
it?
is, because the Earth is moving. The Earth is moving through space.
Yeah.
So, as much as you do fall, the Earth also catches up with you. Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, even Einstein said, according to relativity, if you jump out of a window and you're just minding your own business, and the Earth comes and smacks you in the face. It's space time, isn't it?
yeah, I think what they're saying though is that there is no gravity, so there is no
Yeah, I
gravity.
understand what they're saying, but they're kind of on the right track to
Well, are they?
normality,
Are they?
except no. Well, they got one bit right. The Earth moves, so
Yeah. The Earth moves, sure, but that's not the only force. So they don't believe in any other force apart from.
I didn't say that they were correct. I'm just saying they got
Well,
they
you
got.
kind of,
They,
Are you a convert? What do you think of this? Anyway, let's.
I think it's dangerously stupid, because there are so many tests that you can do. I mean, we've been to the moon, and this will link us ever so very lovely to the next conspiracy theory. But we'll stay on this one for a minute. I just think it's really dangerous that with all the advances in technology and our abilities to see ourselves from such distances, and I mean, we've got a bloody space station going around the planet. Do you know what I
Well,
mean? How are you faking that? I've seen it. You can literally go on your phone or go on your computer, track where it is, and if it's going over you, you can see it. I mean, that's a fucking good illusion if that's not real. Do you know what I mean? And as for the guy, like, there's a guy who's built his own rocket so he can go high enough into the stratosphere to see if there's curvature. I mean,
oh
save
yeah,
yourself the bother, mate, and just fucking understand that the Earth is round, spherical.
yeah. So this guy attempted to do that, but couldn't get high enough. Basically, the height that he got to couldn't see the curvature of the Earth. So he's basically saying there is no curvature of the Earth. Look,
It's dangerous.
I think you're right in some ways. What I'm reading is that the average number of online searches for flat Earth has increased by a factor of 10 since 2014. So it's not a very old theory that came into a popular sphere. If you see what I mean. Oh,
It's a pretty old theory in that it was the theory before we knew the Earth was round.
yeah, but
What I think is dangerous is that it's somehow trending again.
well, this is it.
Do you know what I mean?
This is it.
We got rid of that when we made all these discoveries. I mean, when we discovered that we weren't the center of the universe and that things didn't rotate around us. Do you know what I mean? Like, we disproved that. Even the church thought that everything revolved around us and we were the center of the heavens. And then I think it was either Copernicus or Galileo. They were like, well, pretty sure from our observations that we rotate around the sun. And that was heresy. That was heresy. But with the pursuance of science and logical, rational thinking and evidence, the idea was abolished, and it was finally accepted that it was the truth. And I really don't get why people would think that the Earth is flat. I don't get it.
Well, you can kind of understand it. There is no, unless you travel up into space. Unless you travel into space, when I fly, I don't see that the Earth is round. I don't I don't really look for it, but
But you do believe it, though.
well, it's not even a belief. I mean, it is a fact. Um, it's so for me, it was never an issue until I found out that this is actually quite a huge thing. I mean, I think you're right. I think in a way it is dangerous because it gets to a point where it bleeds into people's normal education. I mean, these aren't kids. These 200 members are comprised of
200,000.
200.
200.
I thought it was 200.
Oh, well, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Go on.
So these are IT professionals, educational workers. They met in a Birmingham hotel in the UK to share the latest flat Earth theories. Now, these are not people that are stupid. These are also people that are within um, within a social standing where they can affect other people's learning. So, if you're an educational worker, if you're a teacher, essentially, and you believe that theory, it's kind of dangerous because you're setting kids up to believe something that is not quite true.
Yeah.
So I do agree with you in the sense that it is a bit dangerous. Um, but I mean, how do you fight it? Because this is the thing. I think ever since sort of Trump came into power, it threw up a lot of science into fake news, alternative facts territory.
Yeah.
So people can now question things that were factually considered as accurate.
Yep.
And since these fake news and alternative facts came in, people have started to say, "Well, wait a second, maybe the Earth is flat. Maybe the Earth is flat, and we're just being lied to. Maybe it's just the lying media and the agenda-driven NASA, which is doing all of this." I mean, I don't know. I kind of think people. I think what we know is that the overall majority still believes that the Earth is a sphere.
Oh, yeah, definitely. But I think this is a very poignant example of the fact that because with the advancement of technology and being able to speak to each other, globally, um, I think that these sort of topics and such a strong disbelief in evidence can spread, and that for me is dangerous to just discount so many years of research and evidence and evidence gathering, and just go, no, the Earth's flat.
But it's
I
but
mean,
these
what I don't understand is if they believe, they know that the moon's a sphere, so therefore Mars is also a sphere. But if they don't believe in gravity and you go to Mars or you go to the moon, what's holding you down then?
well, this is something that I'm not sure they can answer. I'm not
Well,
sure that they can.
exactly. But what are they going to do? Hide behind smoke and mirrors and say, "Oh, we don't know until we get there."
Well, yeah, pretty
Okay,
much, pretty much.
sure. Okay, fine. The other question would be, why would we break the norm? Why would we break a universal law, as it would seem, that all large things over a certain mass become spherical, or you know, as spherical as they can be, depending on their makeup and whatever. Why would we be the only thing that's a disc?
This is a very good question. If there's any flat Earth believers, we can set up a Facebook Live conversation, and you can talk to us. Because, to be honest with you,
I might laugh.
no, we'll approach it. We'll approach it very well, and fairly.
Of course, but if you do spout nonsense, I will laugh.
I think it's easy to poo-poo something that they believe in, but I'm not sure. I think people need to be given a stage to express what they want to say, but there needs to be facts
Yeah.
behind it. It can't just be, oh, we believe there's no gravity because the Earth is moving. We believe because if there's pictorial evidence, if there's mathematical evidence, why would you go against that? and it's not
Sure.
even just, so say the pictorial evidence. There are some supersonic jets which go high up in the atmosphere, which take
Hmm.
pictures. It's not necessarily just satellites, right? So why would global, well, international, um, what you call them, air forces? Why would they want to make everyone believe that the Earth is round?
I mean, where's the benefit?
Well, this
But equally, and this
but that's
will
why it's a conspiracy, isn't it?
well, yeah, but this will link nicely to um, the moon landings. So I think there's a few more sort of evidential reasons as to why people would question the moon landing, because it was the Cold War, wasn't it? America and Russia, and they were both having the space race. Um, so let's move on to the next one. Let's have a chat about the moon landing. Tell me what you know.
Well, so I think recently it was, I think 1969 was the first one, wasn't it?
Yeah,
So nearly 50 years since Apollo 11 mission landed. Global space race. Well, I say global. It was actually just mostly between Russia and America. Russia put up the
yeah,
first man in space. Big up Gagarin.
yeah,
Um, he he circled the space, came down to Earth. They won the war. They won that battle. And then Americans, with John F. Kennedy saying we should be aiming for the moon, etc., etc., and under his guidance, not guidance, but under his presidential
hacking.
campaign and his term, short-lived term, America landed on the moon. Now, this is something that was obviously a huge achievement for any nation. We opened up the possibility for our species as humans to be able to go to other planets. So
Yeah,
interplanetary travel was opened up at that time. Yeah,
trailblazers,
exactly.
pioneers.
Exactly. Now, huge number of NASA workers and rocket scientists, etc., worked on this. The astronauts went through rigorous training to get them ready for this. I think the main conspiracy theory here, aside from the flag and etc., and we'll come on to that, is did they actually have this technology to get us there? Given that how far we are now, and we haven't been, and how far back we were then in terms of technology progress, which was
Yeah,
50 years ago. The other thing that they would say is there's apparently a barrier between the moon and the Earth, which is very radioactive. So it would essentially cause cancer to a lot of the astronauts that were there. As far as I
yeah.
know, they're all quite fit and healthy. Now, given that
Hmm.
there were six manned moon landings between 69 and 72, what people are saying, they were all faked.
Right.
Right. So, over to you, Tom, as a local fish observer.
As opposed to you, quantity
But
surveyor.
I mean, it's not even a joke, right? Because um, between 6 and 20% of Americans believe it's false. So even the country that the residents of a country that achieved this believe that it's not
Yeah,
real. 25% of
yeah,
Britons don't believe it's real. So, but it's what 17 million people believe it's not real. 28% of Russians believe that it wasn't real. But
wow.
I wonder how much of that is because they don't want it to be true, because obviously they lost that space race.
So sort of like national pride
Exactly,
sort of thing.
exactly. So I'm surprised
Okay.
about the 25% of Britons, to be honest with you.
I'm shocked. And actually, I had a chat with someone at work about it, and I said, "How do what do you think about it?" And they said, "Well, I think it's fake." I said, "Why?" He said, "Well, when they put the flag down, you could see it moving like it was in the
Mm.
wind."
Yeah, that's sorry.
And I
That's
said, But I said, well, what did you expect? I mean, you go up there and what the flag, you're moving the flag around. It's not just going to stay rigid,
Well,
is
this
it?
is one of the main.
No, it's a, but I mean, it's a loose fabric. Do you know what I mean? It's not made out of brick. It's not an immovable object. It's thin, flimsy nylon that's a millimeter thick and has no rigidity. Do you expect it to not move? I mean, you expect it to just stay erect, just perfectly square because there's a vacuum in space and nothing will move it. No, that's not going to happen, is it? It will just act like a wave. You wiggle it about, it will move. That doesn't mean that it doesn't have to be wind. Do you know what I mean? Why is that a law?
No, I agree. I agree. The other fact that they claim means that this is all fake is that there's no stars in the sky.
Right.
So the theory
Okay.
is that they filmed it on a set, on a film set. It's not that they just filmed it in a
Sure.
desert or they didn't film it. It's all filmed on a film set. And actually, there was a film recently that came out about Stanley Kubrick, because I think he's
Hmm.
he's credited with actually filming the whole thing, I
Right.
believe. And it's the guy that plays Ron in Harry Potter, the ginger guy. He's I think he's one of the anyway. The whole film is that how Kubrick filmed it, the moon landing.
Right.
So one of the things is there's no stars in the sky, and there's the American flag ripples on the moon, despite the fact there's no air or wind, or there shouldn't be any air or
Right.
wind in the atmosphere.
There isn't any. There is no atmosphere on the moon. There's no atmosphere.
And the Valhalla.
I don't know. I don't know about the stars, but I tell you. Okay, so there's no atmosphere on the moon, so there's no vacuum, so it's just exposed to the vacuum of space. Okay, so you can do a test because there's no air resistance. It's it's a theory. I think it was Einstein who described it. So it's something to do with relativity, I believe. So basically, you could get a feather and a weight of lead and drop them both at the same time. And on Earth, because we have wind resistance, the feather, which is evolved to, like a bit of wind resistance and it will float, they'll drop it, they'll hit the ground at separate times. But you can replicate, and you can do this on Earth, you can replicate this experiment on Earth. So you can create a vacuum, take away all the air and everything, drop them both at the same time, and they'll both hit the ground. And they did that on the moon.
Okay.
They performed that experiment. So if you can replicate an experiment that happened on the moon, you can replicate that on Earth. How would they do that? That's a big chamber to do that on the faint moon landing.
Are you talking about the flag?
No, I'm talking about dropping a stone and a feather and both hitting the deck at the same
But
time.
what does that have any? How does that disprove the theory, the conspiracy theory?
It disproves it. What do you mean? How does it disprove it? It shows that they're in the vacuum of space. You can't do that on Earth, can you?
Yeah. No. Okay. Fine. But okay.
Do you agree? Disagree?
Well, I think, to be honest with you, out of all of the ones that we're going to talk about, so the 9/11, this, and Flat Earth, I think this one is the most plausible.
Plausible, perhaps, but I mean, why is there no stars? I mean, what sort of cameras were they using? Were they sensitive enough to pick up the light of the stars? How do you know that the reflection of the Earth wasn't too bright to cancel out the stars, or at least the camera's sensitivity of the stars?
This is partly what they said as well, what NASA said.
And how about the famous Earthrise photograph?
I mean, yeah, but that can be fake. The reason why I think this is
It can
the
be
reason why I
faked, but it
the
doesn't.
reason why I think this is
Go on.
most plausible is because at that time, America had to react. Russia just sent a guy into space. They had to pull out something that was set the bar so high that it would be seen as the greatest human achievement, which is what it is seen today. Now, I think the reason why this could fall under a conspiracy is that because they had to pull it out, they could have filmed it. And I think what they did is actually, I think they did two things. They filmed it on Earth, and then they actually went to the moon.
That's what you genuinely think?
think they had to, I think because they had to do it, I think that's what they did. But what I think happened is actually they landed on the moon, they filmed it all, so they didn't have to use, things like Kubrick, those kind of rumors, and the fact that I don't know. I think there's something in there. What I think disproves it is the fact that there must have been so many people involved in creating that hoax.
Mm-hmm.
How come it hasn't come to surface? How come there's no footage of a film set? How come there's no pictures? Someone must have recorded this. Someone must have, or someone would have come out and said, you know what, guys, we haven't landed on the moon. It's been 60 years. Fuck it, we're just going to come out and say this. 2 out of 3, I think, of those guys are dead. Mm-hmm. So what is the point of continuing? I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things that do you see what I mean? It's plausible. The thing with this and 9/11 is that they're plausible theories for conspiracy. But I think, I think they did land. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. But talking of conspiracies, and this is the hot one, 9/11 as an inside job.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people died. Thousands of people died in this bombing. I don't think I have to remind anyone about what happened in 2001 on September 11th. Where were you, by the way? Do you remember that moment?
I do remember it. Yeah, I watched it on TV.
So you were at home?
Yeah.
At Truant? Because that happened during school hours. So, wow. Fine. Well, still are. So I just came home from school. Mum was watching the news, and she was like, "Did you hear what happened?" I was about 2001, 17 years ago. I would have been about 13, 14 years of age. I said no, and she showed me, and I saw the planes flying into the towers. This was on Sky News, and I sort of didn't really understand the gravity of it. I didn't really understand how big that moment is. But the theory behind it is that the USA, USA needed a reason to go to war. They flew these planes into the buildings. They then used that as an excuse to go into war with Iraq, or partly as that excuse to go into war with Iraq. Now, this is where war on terror has started for the States. Previous wars that they've made up, like the war on drugs, has gone swimmingly so far. Good results from the war on drugs from the US. So, okay, here we go. Your thoughts?
It's a real tough one. For me, it's the hardest one to think about. I think, mainly because
it's so devious. If it was an inside job, that is the worst.
Yeah. I mean, that takes some heartless men and women, possibly, to plan out and carry out. That's. If I was involved in it, I'm not sure if I could live with myself.
Well, let me tell you a little story. So, JFK, when he was in power,
Hmm.
There was he was presented with a theory. So obviously this was height of Cold War. Um,
Yeah.
there was a communist Cuban leader, which is not that far from the States, so they wanted to dethrone him. Now
Right.
his government, his military officials have said have devised Operation Northwoods. Now, what Operation Northwoods is a false flag operation against the Cuban government, which
Right.
which at that time they presented that they attacked the American people, blame it on the Cuban government, and using that as an excuse, invade Cuba.
Right.
Kennedy has rejected that because he thought there's no point in killing innocent Americans on U.S. soil by our own people with our knowledge, just to invade Cuba, a tiny island called Cuba, okay, with huge nuclear weapons in it, or with potential for huge nuclear weapons in it.
Hmm.
Now, this is the reason why I bring up Operation Northwoods is because it's so poignant and quite scarily accurate. It's a bit like the Simpsons predict the future meme.
Yeah.
Because if this is something that they've thought of before, how can this be unplausible? First of all, I mean, I'm reading this from the BBC website that Thomas found. This was sent. This was written in 2011, so 10 years after the events. So, the first question is, why did the world's most powerful air force fail to intercept any of the 4 hijacked planes?
Yeah.
So the theory is that Dick Cheney, who shot another guy in the government, ordered the military to stand
Yeah.
down and not to intercept the planes. What do you think? I did question this. How can the world's most advanced military not be able to see that a plane was going off course and was actually, in one of the busiest cities in the world, one of the busiest air traffic places in the world? How can they not have spotted that a plane was going rogue?
Yeah. I mean, with radar tracking and constant communication between, the ground and the air, it's difficult. It's difficult to imagine a scenario where you wouldn't be able to intercept, or at least figure out what was happening and come up with some sort of contingency plan.
Yeah.
I mean,
Do you actually
go
believe
on.
this?
I'm agnostic on this one.
Mm.
I want to say that I don't believe it because I find it despicable and
So you don't want to believe it. It's not like you don't. You just don't want to because it's so bad.
Because it is so bad, and I think, like I said, I'm split down the middle. I read the facts and I look at them and I think, there's a lot of things in there that make sense for the conspiracy theory. It's probably the only one that I would give any sort of credence to because I'm not a fan of conspiracy theories.
Oh,
as
good.
a rule.
Good episode for you then.
Your suggestion. So, and we always do what you want to do because, selfish.
Mental health, environment.
Anyway, hot topics, mate. But this one is interesting because obviously me and you, we've actually never really chatted about conspiracy theories before. So it's good to see your view. I mean, where do you stand?
I think given that they needed to exert power and that they wanted to invade, we've got to look at where America was economically and politically.
I mean, do you think part of it is that they went to look for the weapons of mass destruction and they couldn't find any? Well,
no, because that was afterwards.
Yeah, I know.
Was afterwards. I think this.
But is that part of the? I've probably worded that wrong, but is that part of the conspiracy? Because everyone was kicking off saying Saddam's got this and that and the other, and then we get the green light to go and we find nothing.
Well, I think that is just the reason why they went to war with Iraq is idiotic. The reason why we as the UK joined them was also idiotic. Yes. I think it shows deep misunderstanding of the Middle East situation in terms of how different religious sects and tribes move and communicate, and how what they don't like about each other, and how these the thing is that the different factions of Islam want to kill each other because they deeply believe that their prophet, or not their prophet, their creed is actually the right one, and they would go to war and kill each other to prove that. Now, I think in a way it shows partly that they do, and the Americans did understand that, and that's why they caused all of this. But on the other end, if they really wanted to export democracy, they know that this can't happen. Look, I'm not a fan of Assad, Hussein, or Gaddafi, but these guys kept their people under control. If you go to Iraq now and you ask them, was it better under Saddam or is it better now? They would say it was better under Saddam. Are you kidding me? Look, I don't have a house. There's bombings every other month. Innocent people are dying. All we had to do was not question the power. Okay, we lived under a dictator. We lived under a dictator who suppressed the press and who exerted his power and will, and he was a god in our country. But is that worse than what they have now? I have many American friends who are like, yeah, but don't you know, what about freedom of speech, blah, blah, blah. It's like, yeah, okay, I know, I get it. You want freedom of speech, that's fine. But I think that these civilizations have to be controlled. Democracy doesn't suit everyone. Democracy would not suit Russia. Democracy would not suit a lot of the African countries. Because as we see, it opens a path for people who are more educated, have more resources to control that democracy. I come from Kazakhstan, where democracy is only existing by name.
Right.
So I think the whole reason to go to war was for oil, let's face it. And I think because, it's just, for me, it's the most despicable reason to do that. You do it basically for money. So millions of people suffer just because you want a new market to go into. If you're that worried about democracy and a violation of human rights, why not invade Zimbabwe or North Korea or Russia or China or Saudi Arabia, who they do billions of dollars worth of business with? That's what I don't get. I think this is probably, as you said, the most plausible conspiracy theory. I think the fact that they thought of it previously points to, well, why not do it now? The thing with America is they always need an enemy. And before 2001, they almost didn't have one. They had the Soviets in the first instance, right? That subsided because the Cold War not ended, but it quietened down. Collapse of communism means that the Cold War was really going cold. Then they had the war on drugs in the 80s and 90s, and the 70s, I think, which again, the CIA has paid people to bring drugs into US, and they dropped off, it's just, anyway. So then they had the war on drugs. So the drug people like Escobar, they were the massive threat to people in the US. And then it was kind of okay. So what now? So they made up this war on terror. I genuinely think that's how they operate because you can only control people with fear. That's what Russia does, and that's what they do. I think they thought, well, guys, I don't think they bombed the building necessarily. I don't think they bombed the building themselves. I think
I mean, that's what some of the theories are, isn't it? That there was a um, explosive planted in the two towers, and that's why they fell much quicker than they should
yeah,
have.
which is again, it might be true. It might be something to do with the fact that a 747 Boeing landed into the building itself. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
Um, but I think they either cooperated with, but bearing in mind the mastermind of all this, Osama bin Laden, was previously a freedom fighter for Americans. They have
Right.
either the New York Times or the Washington Post had an article about him. How he was a freedom fighter because he fought off the communists in Afghanistan.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know, I wouldn't be surprised if this was a coordinated attack between the Americans and Osama bin Laden.
Yeah. I mean, we're never going to
No,
know.
no. But again, this is another one of those things that, well, if this was an inside job, why hasn't anyone? There must have been someone on the committee to sign this off that was a
Mm.
patriot who said, "Guys, we cannot like Kennedy did. We cannot do this. And if you don't do if you don't subside or feeling the after effects and saying, okay, yeah, this was a fucking huge mistake."
Well, I mean, the, if that was the case, and the government did kill all those people, what's one more person? Or they would say, "Who's going to believe you?
Yeah, there is that. There is that.
Prove it."
There is that. But yeah, so the other question from this article is collapse of the Twin Towers. Why did they go so quickly? Why didn't they go to the left or to the right? They literally went down within their
Yeah.
own footprint. Um, conspiracy theorists are saying that it's a controlled demolition. Um, yeah, I think
I mean, they could have done it better.
I
If it was a conspiracy, surely they could have done it to make it look more authentic.
yeah.
I prefer South Park's view on it.
Okay, go on.
Well, South Park's view is that it happened. It was an attack, and the government created the conspiracy theory and leaked the conspiracy theory to show how powerful the government is. Do you know what I mean? They took credit for it even though it wasn't them.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, they haven't though, have they?
Well, I don't know if that's true. That was a cartoon, mate.
No,
South
no, no.
Park.
As in, but have they? The government hasn't adopted the theory, have they?
Well, they wouldn't say that, would they?
The other one is the attack on
They
Pentagon.
they
This one is probably for me the most interesting one because if you look at the pictures of the Pentagon when it was supposedly the plane flew into it.
Yeah.
I mean, there's very minimal damage considering the same plane that went into the tower and melted it to destruction
Yeah.
has done relatively little damage.
Mm. I know. I mean, we could sit and talk all night about it and still not get any closer.
No, I think you're right. I think you're right. I mean, things like building number 7, which is the adjacent building to the World Trade Center, the Twin Towers. That was the owner of that property insured the building against terrorism cover for $1 billion.
Yeah.
Or something along those lines. He insured it for a massive sum, and lo and behold, the next week or the next month, his building collapsed, and he made a shitload of money.
Shock.
It's those kind of things which I think, which is why I said, a lot of these theories are based on they've got the real events have got so many holes in them and so many questions. It's not like the flat Earth theory, which is, look, guys, we've got photos, we've got footage, we've got everything. These are some of the theories which I think are quite plausible in a way.
Sure. So, seeing as we've gone 20 minutes over our half an hour that we wanted to do, that means that next episode's only going to be 10 minutes long. It's not. But I think, shall we leave it there for now on that one, and then and pick it up on the next installment of this riveting, deep topic?
Yeah, I think there's so many. There's JFK to come. There's general government conspiracy that they're all part of a massive society that wants to control the global world.
Oh, the Illuminati.
Well, yeah. I think that's a crazy one. But yeah, okay. Yeah, let's finish it off. Look, I think in general, what are my thoughts on conspiracy theories? A lot of them question the facts, rightly so, I think, but a lot of the times they should just leave it where it is, especially with the one about 9/11. So many people died that actually it's almost disrespectful to think that people can be so devious as to go for that.
Yeah.
The worst one is the Sandy Hook shooting. People were saying that those kids were actors, that it was a false flag job to ban guns. I think that one's. I'm not even gonna. We're not gonna talk that one in much detail because I just think that one's ridiculous. Children died. I mean, come on, guys, have some self-respect.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, this is another one of those episodes, unedited, as you could hear by Tom's rustling.
Your phone didn't go off once, though. I'm very impressed. It is called silent.
Once bitten, twice shy. Yeah. So,
text me once. Shame on you.
Text me twice. You're desperate. Yeah. Anyway, what are your plans for the rest of the week, Tomo?
Oh well, research. See what other topics are out there that we can dig up and talk about, and in between those times, work like the rest of our hard-working listeners. Yeah, all 5 of them.
And also, guys, if you like the new format, where we just sort of try and cut it down, and because personally, I think the topics that we talk about you can't really cover in half an hour, but no. I'm willing to listen and change
to suit your needs.
Exactly.
In your high-speed lifestyles.
Exactly. But as always, the Ecuadorians, big up to you guys. South Korea.
Yeah, South Korea, Australia. They are 0.4 and 0.3 respectively of our listener base. So, hello.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hello. Anyway, guys, it's been an absolute pleasure. Tommy, do you want to tell our listeners how and where they can reach us?
Well, I guess I could. Twitter, find us, YarnSpinners1. I'm not going to tell you what the handle is again. YarnSpinners1, I did. And the email, yarnspinnerspodcast@gmail.com. Do get in touch. Please, we're desperate.
Yeah, and also, obviously, you can find us on YouTube, where this will be posted, Yarn Spinners channel. Yeah, do give us a listen and let us know what you guys think. This is going to be probably an explosive one.
Hopefully. Hopefully, want to ruffle some feathers, fucking wake people up, and let's have a chat. Come on.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, we will see you soon.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.